Well, it's the end of groups, and G2 has officially qualified in as third place after a very strange game against your former team, TSM. I'm joined by Weldon right now, coach of G2. So first off, talk to me a little bit about what this event has been like for you, because G2 has had, much like so many other teams here, a very strange event, I think.
Well, it was for us. It was a really focused feeling because we got to come an entire week early. G2 put us up with a boot camp, and we were here scrimming other teams that were in Sao Paulo for the play-in stages, and we were able to scrim, some other teams, and so we had a lot of kind of like anticipation, and then all of a sudden it finally started, and so it felt like we were really well prepared. But then when we went on stage, it didn't feel as much because, of course, then the meta starts, transforming and shifting and warping all over the place once we see what's actually winning and what's losing.
Yeah, I mean, do you think, because I think one of the questions or great mysteries that I'm sure a ton of Twitter analysts and Reddit commentators or commenters will debate about is sort of like what happened at this event, especially in the group stage with so many teams looking so inconsistent. So what do you think it is that, not just with G2, but across the board with everybody pretty much except for SKT that, what has caused this kind of strange turn of events?
I mean, it's a really obvious explanation. I mean, all the teams are the same level. This is what it looks like when everybody's the same.
I mean, you say that, but then there are games where like teams look amazing, and then teams where the games that really look terrible.
Compositions, and when you pick a snowball comp and you snowball, you win, and if you don't snowball, you lose. So you end up with a fast game or like a 60-minute game where you lose, and I mean that's League of Legends. Like you draft for win conditions. So there's some win conditions that are 25 minutes, and you got to do it. There's some win conditions that are like 30-minute power spike. It depends on the style of the team, but most teams you have to be able to play at least two different styles or two different win conditions in your draft to be able to last through a best of series. And so I think.
Well, then if with G2 in that final G2 TSM game, what was did you all along know that there was going to be this, what you would say like a power spike that would bring G2 back, or were you maybe a little nervous?
I mean, anytime you pick Caitlyn, you have that kind of, I think she was the only physical damage in the comp, so everybody has to buy armor just for her, and if nobody does, then it's brutal. But yeah, I mean, you get Caitlyn and you pick a few items, you get a fire cannon, and it's like it's scary. I mean, you always have a win condition, so that's nice.
So were you always confident then? I mean, they were down like the entire game until like the very last minute, right?
I have never. Okay, there's a couple times where I've been like unconfident that G2 was going to pull it back and win, but I would say most of the times, even when they lose, I always feel like the game is takeable. Okay. But that, of course, that's different when we draft a comp that requires early pressure, and then we can't pull it off. Like I think the Elise comp that we played the other day maybe didn't have as many late game win conditions or any sort of like balance there, and it looked really painful when it fell behind. Yeah. If I might be remembering that wrong, but. Yeah, we played a lot of games and a lot of scrims, so they're kind of mixing up in my head now.
Sure. So, okay, one of the things that a lot of people have said over the course of this tournament, especially because for a while it looks like G2 wasn't going to make it out of groups even, was that G2 like just underperforms at international events or whatever, especially given the context of their previous events. You being on the inside, especially for MSI, what do you think of sort of G2's stage performance on these international performances?
I mean, I think that everybody's kind of playing at the level that we can pull out, and I mean, people are good, teams are good. I think that there's a lot of desire among fans to see edification, of their home region. But the reality is that when we went to IEM, we got really, really like a lot better at the game than we did scrimming in EU, unfortunately. And I think. I'm really, really excited for next split because UOL like recognized this. They recognized that when they started going up against Flash Wolves, at IEM, and they were scrimming there a lot against the Korean teams and Flash Wolves. They really felt the difference in knowledge, and now they're in Korea, boot camping. So I think that teams trying to be more disciplined and trying to push themselves forward as a coordinated unit. I mean, team play really makes the game nowadays. And at the international level, and if you don't have that coordination, you have to go learn it. And their version is to go to Korea and have a boot camp, get everybody focused. Maybe they'll soak up some knowledge there, maybe they won't, but at the very least, they're training hard for it. So maybe if the ecosystem levels up, and certainly we'll bring back a lot of skill from this tournament, whether we do well in the playoffs or not. I think that we've learned a ton here, and we've gotten a lot better, over the course of the game. So I think that things are looking up.
Yeah. All right, now I want to ask you a little bit if you have any thoughts on sort of TSM's performance here, given that you were just with them not too long ago.
I mean, I was cheering for them sometimes, and then sometimes I was cheering against them because of obviously the standings and which game it was. But I really love TSM and Flash Wolves, and I wish them both the best. Like Flash Wolves is really good training partners for both G2 and TSM at Worlds last year, and TSM is obviously where my heart resides after G2. So I think that they've also been having a good and tough tournament, and yeah, I mean I think that there's just a lot of really good teams here.
Yeah, because we should say as we're filming this, TSM Flash Wolves tiebreaker is undecided, but
yeah,
we'll know by then.
Shoot, so by the time this goes out, we'll know who's coming with us.
Yeah. Well, so your dream of, because I read this in an interview that, or I saw this online, that you wanted to face SKT in the semis and then TSM in the finals. Unfortunately, you'll have to wait at least until the finals to face SKT. And, I mean, maybe you'll face TSM. Who knows? But, what do you think of your team's chances of getting to the finals and maybe taking this tournament?
The dream is still alive. We can still face TSM in the finals.
Okay. All right. As of this recording, if Flash Wolves win, then it's out. But do you think that your team can take SKT? Because they seem like they're just on another level.
I mean, you're right, it's a best of 5, so we're going to draft, and then we'll see how that pans out, and then we'll adjust and adapt, and then we'll play another game, and then we'll adjust and adapt, and we'll see. Yeah. But I think our second game against them, we really handicapped ourselves in the second half of the draft phase because we kind of went against our plan going into it. And I don't think we'll do that again. So I hope it looks a lot more like our first SKT game. Yeah.
And then finally on on G2's sort of mental strength right now, I thought it was really interesting that they lost pretty handily to SKT today, and then they were again playing so behind in the TSM match, but still were able to stay in the game so well that they could end up closing it out. What has sort of the mental status of G2 been? Because I know I think a lot of people tend to think of that as your area of expertise on the coaching side. So what has the team been like over the course of this tournament?
So, I mean, I think that resilience from behind in League of Legends, the thing that you need is a lot of focus because it's a really error-based game. So you make one mistake, and that gives away a bunch of advantage to the enemy, and then again and again. So if you want to show that you have mental resilience, you have to be able to not make mistakes. Like, for example, running to the tier 1 mid or tier 3 mid turret against when you get Baron and then losing the TSM right. So stuff like that. So I really think that I haven't even really started working on the really fundamental and foundational stuff with G2 that I think will bring it to the next level. Like we were just covering all the basics in the first split, which was a lot of stuff related to burnout, and better training environment and things that kind of already exist a lot in NA, but don't exist in EU as much, where you play scrims all the way out to the end so that you get more time spent in the late game, practicing those things, and just these various kind of good habits. Yeah. And I'm very hopeful because I think that as we implement some of the more kind of focus-based, mindfulness-based practices in the next split, maybe it'll scale up even more.
Anything you want to say to any of the G2 fans who will be watching this during the break and hopeful for the bracket stage?
Thank you for sticking with us. It's really hard to be a G2 fan in Europe. You have to defend us against all of the haters, and I appreciate that a lot, and so does the team. And what was the other question?
Anything for the bracket stage coming up?
Oh, cheer for us.
Yeah.
We'll do our best.
I'm sure they will. Thank you so much for the interview. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of our coverage of all things MSI here at Yahoo Esports.